And I love it because I think there's just such a misunderstanding about personal branding, and it is evolving. People are understanding it more and more now. But I would say that it's really about how is the world seeing you? What is your reputation digitally, formally? Because your reputation precedes you. And so personal branding is intentionally shaping what is being seen so that you can be a magnet and to the right fitting people and not a megaphone trying to convince the world that like you're their person. So I love it. And it's all, how can we define what makes you you? What is unique about you? What is the problem you solve? And the way you solve it is unique to you. Those are the kinds of things that differentiate you. And when you do that well and do that right, your confidence goes through the roof because you know that my messaging is so clear.
Welcome to Her Unshakeable Confidence with dynamic mother-daughter duo Simone and Olivia Knego, where they discuss the secrets of transformation and how to build bold confidence and unwavering resilience. From intimate conversations with inspiring guests to sharing their personal journeys of triumph and challenge, Simone and Olivia create a supportive space where every woman is encouraged to rise above her fears and love the woman in the mirror. Tune into Her Unshakeable Confidence and join this special journey of connection and growth. It's like catching up with old friends who inspire you to be bravely and uniquely you.
Welcome to this week's episode of Her Unshakeable Confidence. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm Simone Knego.
And I'm Olivia Knego.
And today we have a very special guest, a friend of mine, an amazing mentor, Kristen Hartnagel. She is a dynamic speaker, personal branding expert, and founding member of the globally renowned Brand Builders Group. With a deep passion for empowering individuals to break through belief barriers and achieve exponential growth, Kristen has transformed the lives of New York Times bestselling authors, highly sought-after keynote speakers, and high-achieving business owners. She is also a coach. She has a coaching platform called Evolve Now, and I love all of the work that she does. Her dedication to learning about our relationship with spirit and the power of our thoughts is not just a passion, it's a cornerstone of her personal methodology. Kristen, thank you so much for being here today.
Simone and Olivia, I am so honored just working with you in the past and now having a chance to be on your podcast. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're really excited about this conversation because I've worked with you professionally building my brand, and this is one of the big things that you do for people. You help people build out their brand. And it's funny, when I first started, I don't think I really knew what that meant, right? I didn't realize that I needed to be my brand, right? I needed a brand that was me and not just, oh, she's a speaker. Like, who am I? So let's talk a little bit about personal branding and like what attracts you to it. Like what gets you excited about personal branding? Big question.
It's a big question, and I love it because I think there's just such a misunderstanding about personal branding, and it is evolving. People are understanding it more and more now. But I would say that it's really about how is the world seeing you? What is your reputation digitally, formally? Because your reputation precedes you. And so personal branding is intentionally shaping what is being seen so that you can be a magnet and to the right fitting people and not a megaphone trying to convince the world that like you're their person. So I love it. And it's all, how can we define what makes you you? What is unique about you? What is the problem you solve? And the way you solve it is unique to you. Those are the kinds of things that differentiate you. And when you do that well and do that right, your confidence goes through the roof because you know that my messaging is so clear. I'm not going to be wasting my time with people who aren't the right fit.
Absolutely. And I think about even for Olivia right now, going through law school. Like,
I have a brand.
Well, okay, tell us.
Well, I mean, I just like from a professional standpoint, I've had to, for the last 4 years being in a business undergrad program, you don't use the word brand, but it's crafting your own personal story to sell yourself during interviews. So like if you look at my brand specifically, I want to go entertainment law. How does my background benefit that? I worked at a huge entertainment company doing an internship. I have a background in theater. I've always loved performance, and I have a podcast.
Mm.
All things that add up towards entertainment.
So good, so good. That's exactly what we do with clients is we like, what is everything you've ever done in your life?
Mm-hmm.
And how can we craft an expert bio? But it all starts with who are you being called to serve? So if you're not clear, like for you, you're not really serving anybody as you're like moving into this
Yeah.
career thing. But when you're kind of doing an entrepreneurial business, it starts with you're creating something for someone. Can we get clear on who that is? Because that's going to shape the way we frame that expert bio, the way we frame the content that you're creating, whether you're speaking on a podcast, how are we, doing that exposure play so that you're not the best kept secret out there, so that people know about you.
Do you find that to be a question that individuals are like struggle to answer?
Oh, yeah. I think as a matter of fact, it wouldn't just be my opinion. Web designers, copywriters, people who are doing things in the service industry for people, they're like, man, I wish everybody would go through finding your brand DNA with Brand Builders Group, because they say, hey, build me a website. And I'm like, okay, tell me about you. And they're like, So if you can articulate, this is who I'm being called to serve. This is the problem I solve for them. This is my unique way of solving that problem. This is the directive I would tell my avatar in order to solve that problem. That kind of clarity dials in all of the messaging. So yeah, they know they want to change the world, but they don't know how to craft that reputation, what they've done, and how they can help people in a way that people understand it. I mean, if people aren't working with you, it's because they're confused. We try and do too much. So we kind of contribute to the noise inadvertently. We need to get laser focused on those few things, and that'll help us kind of break through what we call Sheehan's wall, so that you're more on that known side of things.
And that's really when we talked about rebranding our podcast, because when we first started, we were just stabbing in the dark. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing. We were like, let's do a podcast. And I love the title of when we started, the Daughter Dearest podcast. But in the end, it's not part of my brand, right? I mean, my brand is all about building unshakable confidence. And so when we rebranded to Her Unshakeable Confidence, not only did it fit in with everything that we were doing, but it makes so much sense between Olivia and I, because I want her to have unshakable confidence, right? I want the things that I went through in my life. Imagine if we could have learned earlier how to do all these things, right? I spent so many years of my life just riddled with self-doubt and not accomplishing the things that I could have accomplished because I didn't believe in myself. So if she can start at an earlier age saying, oh, I've got this, like I have these tools, I know what to do, then yes, the whole goal is she has unshakable confidence.
Well, who doesn't want unshakable confidence? And when you compare those two titles, even though that's an awesome title that you had before, nobody knows what that is. What am I going to get? I'm going to get to hear a conversation between a mother and a daughter, and that's really all I know. So the title, Unshakable Confidence, it passes one of Brand Builder's tests. Is it so clear? What we want to do is make no mistake. We don't want anybody who's looking at what you do to have a shadow of a doubt about what you do and how you help me. Unshakable confidence, I want that. So I got to tune in. Powerful title.
Thank you. That was like, it came from one of the sessions that I worked at with Brand Builders. It was like just a moment of, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And it was available, even better.
I know.
You never know how that's going to work.
That's right.
So talking about confidence, what does confidence mean to you? Because, and I want to get into the coaching part as well, but obviously confidence plays a big part in all of our lives. And I think everybody defines it differently. Sometimes people get a little confused, even like they do with building a brand, in that they think that confidence is the loudest person in the room. So what does it mean to you?
Well, I would say that people who are building a personal brand specifically, they know that they have something to offer the world. And yet they're going to have these crises in confidence because they start to have self-sabotaging beliefs. They start to have imposter syndrome. They start to doubt, like, is anything I'm putting out there worthy of being out there? And if everybody could understand that everybody goes through that, it's just a frequency thing. It's like you could be saying the identical words as somebody else, but somebody can only hear it from you. They're tuned into your frequency. So we really don't, with billions of people on the planet, we don't need to be putting any attention, wasting any energy on what else anybody else is doing. Just be true to yourself and what you have to offer, and articulate that in such a clear way that you're going to attract the people who are the best fit. So confidence to me means knowing yourself. And I would say loving yourself so well that it doesn't really matter what else is going on around you. Unshakable confidence is such a strong self-love that things could be going to hell in a handbasket and you're okay. Your sense of who you are, your sense of identity isn't attached to even what you do. It's who you are.
I love that definition. And I really do think that it is so key that when we have those moments, because there's not one person out there that doesn't struggle, right? I mean, we have struggles every day. I mean, Olivia and I were talking right before you got on about like, oh my gosh, all these things that are happening and like keeping everything organized, and it's overwhelming sometimes. But the whole point is to not get overwhelmed. It's to just take them as they come at you and figure out, okay, what strategy can I use to move forward? But when things get really tough, we have a choice in how we want to react, right? We can totally fall apart, or we can figure out how to move forward. And that is what I believe really builds that unshakable part, is moving forward even when it's really hard, even when it's really scary, even when we have no idea what's going to happen. That to me is what makes us unshakable.
Oh, it's so true. And part of the deal is if I truly want to live into unshakable confidence, I can't afford to say it has to do with my to-do list getting done. It has to do with what it looks like on the outside as far as these markers of success. It's, have I shown up as myself? Have I given it all I have? And sometimes all I have isn't like this uber ultra performance. It's just, I made it through the day. I mean, people are going through grief. People are going through, things that can sideline them. And confidence comes to, in my opinion, comes from the ability to separate yourself from what's happening, to be the witness of what's happening, and to say, even just a subtle shift, I get to do this instead of I have to do this, is a perspective shifter. And so whenever we're looking at something that we don't like, we have to understand, number one, we're at choice. I can change my mind about this. I can't change the thing, but I can certainly change my mind about this. And so there's processes, there's lots of things that I do in my coaching to just help people get a better perspective so that they can rein that in and not go down that rabbit trail of that overwhelm.
So let's talk about more. Let's talk more about the coaching that you offer, and that who do you work with, and what exactly is the goal at the end of your whatever, how, like, what's the goal? When people come to you and say, I need help with this.
Yeah. Well, I would say let's put on both hats, because as a brand builder, it's those mission-driven messengers. And typically it's a speaker or an author or an entrepreneur who is creating something new or driving leads to this thing that they've already created. And so what they want is more leads. They want more business. And so they're building a personal brand to grow the people who know about them, because when more people know about them, they've got more people who will eventually convert into clients. And that's coaching, also coaching people through a brand strategy to grow their personal brand. My Evolve Now personal coaching that I do with people, they're usually high achieving women who on paper, their life looks great. And so they feel a little bit guilty because they're like, man, if anybody looks from the outside at my life, I have nothing to complain about, but I'm just not where I thought I would be. There's this level of like, I don't know how to put my finger on it, but it's maybe unfulfillment, dissatisfaction. It's something that just I thought I would be feeling differently or experiencing things differently. And to me, that's a little bit of a misalignment. They might be super successful. They might even have the kids and the house and the marriage, but they haven't really done the thing that fulfills their soul. And so how can we tap into that place? If you're not doing the thing that fulfills you to the nth degree, there's probably little signs, and I call them like little nudges, like little spirit taps on the shoulder, little whispers. Hey, you're kind of meant for more.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you're supposed to be doing this thing, or you could be doing this thing. And so many of these professional women are like, hey, thanks so much. I know thanks for the gift, God, but I'm just going to keep on doing what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not satisfied. And so the answer to that is, how can we figure out what that is and inch towards that so that you can have, more respect for yourself. Bottom line is, you kind of disrespect yourself when you say, I'm supposed to be here doing something, but I'm doing something else.
Yeah, I totally believe that. And I mean, that was me for years. That was me. I was the person that looked great on paper, but was a mess on the inside. And it was kind of hard to say, well, I struggle because people are like, oh, she's so stoic. She's so strong. And I was like, I got to the point where I actually couldn't even cry about things because people didn't expect that of me, right? They expected that I wouldn't cry at something. So even the kids at home were like, is she going to cry? Is she going to cry? And so I got to that point where I was like, why am I doing this? Who am I putting up this facade for? Right? I am not happy doing this, but I have amazing things in my life, but this was just not working for me. And that was kind of like my moment where I mean, there were a lot of moments, but where I was like, why am I doing this? I need to make a change.
Yeah. And you don't want to get to the end of your life and go, I felt those nudges. I really did recognize that something was calling me, and I just never had the courage to do some soul searching to figure out what that was. Like, that doesn't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think things like that never feel good, but we're in the moment. I think it's really hard for some women to say, take a step back and say, what am I going to change? Because we're so used to, and I'm overgeneralizing going through our lives, going from point A to point B with our heads down and not really thinking about what we need for ourselves or what we want.
I think that's changing generationally. Thank God. I think that, Olivia, you can probably speak to this, but I would say that what I've known from my children are now 28 and 30, and my boys are really coming from the space of, I'm not going to make anybody else happy, and I'm not going to be happy if I don't figure out what truly makes me tick and pursue that.
Yeah, I would say that I think so. I think that my generation is more open to untraditional career paths and untraditional paths of success, not even career-wise, and open to finding fulfillment outside of career. And I think like that's really, really important because it's not everyone's going to love their 9 to 5, but if that's what your entire life is, then you're going to always feel like there's something else calling you. And I think what my generation is realizing is like, hey, you don't have to love your 9 to 5, but have something else outside of it that does give you fulfillment, whether that's like creating a own personal brand or just like exploring a hobby.
And that's why I'm a singer in a rock and roll band.
Yeah.
You had me beaming from ear to ear, because I tell that to my kids. I tell that to all of my clients. It doesn't have to be the thing you do for income, but if there's something that fulfills you, make time for it in your life, because it is the thing that fills you up so that you have more to give and you have your best self and best energy to give from.
Yeah. Before we get into like, I obviously need to address the fact that you just said you're a rock and roll star. But before we get into that, I think just like on top of that, it doesn't need to be something that's your like main source of income. And it also doesn't need to be something that you want to make into a source of income. You could just like, you don't have to have like a secret motive behind having this avenue of fun. Oh, well, like this eventually is going to be super successful for me. Like it's super successful because you want to be doing it. And that's how you're getting your outlet.
Love that. So true.
So I think back to rock and roll star.
Well, I've been a singer all my life. My mom played piano. We all sang around the piano. My sister and I would perform all over the country. And she was the biggest gift to me, because she would take a song that I would write. I would have these downloads of lyrics and melodies, but I couldn't write music. She would arrange them and then take me to the recording studio, and we would make these CDs. And It was just so beautiful. And then I was asked to speak and sing at lots of New Thought churches and spiritual centers. And then that all stemmed from, hey, we love your music. What inspired that song? And so I've just never really let go of singing. Now I'm in an all-female, pretty much 60s and 70s music. And these women started when they were in the 60s. So I get to hang around with beautiful older women and feel super, super young because I'm the youngest of them, which is very different because I'm probably the oldest at Brand Builders Group. So I love the mix of these generations and all the ways that they can contribute to make my life richer.
And you had recently a very exciting thing happen in one of your videos. I actually watched it on YouTube and it was really fun. Like I knew that you sang because we talked about it, but then seeing you actually perform was so fun. And seeing the women that you perform with was amazing. So tell us a little bit about what's going on there.
Well, typically throughout the year, we're just going to like little like American Legion or, Knights of Columbus during the winter because I live in Michigan. But in the summer, there's all kinds of outdoor venues. And there's this beautiful outdoor venue called Frederick Meyer Gardens, and they bring in big name headliners.
Mhm.
But Tuesdays, they have local groups. And so every year for like the past 6 years, we've been able to come into this huge outdoor venue, thousands of people in the audience. And it's like my little girl dream come true to be singing on a stage in front of thousands. And so this one song, Spirit in the Sky, has, I don't know what YouTube does to like, push a video out, but it has like 360,000 views. It's crazy. I just don't know why it's doing that, but it started in July, so not very long, and it's taken off. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, if we're going to put it in the show notes because it's really fun to watch. I mean, I know it's like a little random for what we're talking about, but it is about building your community and I mean, it's all part of who you are, right? So your
Well,
brand, yeah,
it builds unshakable confidence,
yeah.
right? You do what
Hmm.
scares you and it won't anymore. Like singing in front of thousands of people, like that scares the crap out of me, but I'm going to do it anyway because there's nothing like dancing with wild abandon or just like letting it rip singing and not caring anymore. I mean, singing all my life, I cared, like, is my voice sounding good? And now I'm just doing it so often that it's just like, and it's so fun.
And I would imagine this group of women for you is an amazing community. And I
Oh,
think that's part of like brand builders for me is a really great community. I
Hmm.
have my different communities of women all over but having that kind of close-knit group that you've been together with for so long has to be an amazing support system.
you're not, I mean, that is probably the reason. I mean, being on stage and singing is the first reason
Hmm.
I do it because it's such an outlet. But this particular group of women, we literally come together in a powwow before every time we go out on stage to just kind of connect and give thanks and talk about why we're there. We're not there for us, we're there for the audience. We also like bring out essential oils and we do all these fun little routine things before we go out. And then we just do our best to have fun. We always say, why are we here? To have fun and connect and like hopefully give people a memory. Because if we're singing songs from the 60s and 70s, every time you hear a song like that from the past, it's triggering these memories and you can just see people's faces light up and they're dancing. And that just doesn't, there's nothing that brings me more joy except for my baby granddaughters, my twin grandbaby.
Oh, how sweet.
How old are they?
They are now like 19 months.
Oh my gosh. That goes by so fast.
Gosh, it's crazy. Yep.
So let's go back a little bit to speaking, and I want to talk a little bit about when in your bio, we talk about the learning about our relationship with spirit and the power of our thoughts is not just a passion, it's a cornerstone of her personal methodology. Let's talk about that a little bit, talking about the importance for you of spirit, whether I think for a lot of people it means different things, but what's your approach in this when you talk about your methodology?
Yeah, well, I want to kind of talk about two different things, like what I do with coaching clients, but you brought up speaking, and I
Mhm.
think it's a great example because I can get in my own head and worry so much about what I'm going to say that I get in my own way. So I have this prayer that I say before I go out to speak or do a podcast or start with coaching clients. And it's something that somebody else wrote, but it's, I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I don't have to worry about what to say or what to do, for he who sent me will direct me. I'm content to be wherever he wants me to be, knowing he is here with me. I am healed as I let him teach me to heal. And what that does for me is it just reminds me I have volunteered to be this vehicle. I just want whatever you need, whatever that audience needs to hear to come through me. And if I'm in my own head about what to say or what comes next, that can't flow. So the flow comes when I can remove myself from that equation and say, okay, I am ready, come through me. And inevitably, even when I've prepared really meticulously for a talk, if I say that prayer, I honor an inspiration, because that must mean that there's somebody calling for this message. And who am I to not let that come through?
That's really interesting. Yeah. When I think about preparation for stuff, I mean, and everybody does things differently, right? I mean, I am not someone that would probably say a prayer ahead of time. That's just not how I do things. But I do think about what draws us in a certain moment, right? When you take a right instead of a left, or when you're speaking and all of a sudden a different story comes to your head, like what's the reason behind it? And I always do feel like everything happens for a reason. My kids sometimes are like, oh my gosh, mom, seriously? But I do kind of see it that way. Sometimes in the moment we don't understand it, but I've had that happen before in speaking engagements where I told a story I hadn't told before. And one time I had a woman come up, I was talking about something very, very particular with one of our kids' adoptions. And it totally inspired her to tell me her whole story about being a birth mother. And she's like, I've never told anybody this before. And it was really powerful. And if I wouldn't have told that story that I wasn't planning on telling, it wouldn't have happened.
I love that. And so for all of those speakers out there who really, because there's a very fine line. We have a lot of speakers who come in to Brand Builders Group and say, I really love winging it. I really love being spontaneous. And we're like, we kind of rail against that, because we want to have consistency. Your meeting planners need to know that what you delivered there is what they're going to get here. So we want you to have a talk that you know inside and out and love. And it's only then, when you know it so well, that you can be open. To me, what you just described was inspiration, which to me is like that in spirit. It's something that comes from outside of you. And my prayer really isn't to, anything in specific, except for that universal energy that I like to honor. There's something larger than myself out there, and I like to honor it in that way. So that inspiration is something I always want to be as open to as possible, but it takes awareness, because otherwise we'll just show up and kind of plow through. It really does kind of take that, I would say, like stepping outside of yourself to say, are you present before you go out?
Mm-hmm.
And then I know I kind of said I wanted to talk about it.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
How that applies to what I do with coaching clients is typically there's somebody who can recognize I'm not where I want to be. And that's usually there's some limiting belief. And to me, we don't necessarily have to do the digging to find out what is that belief, but can you develop a practice where you can be aware of what it is you're thinking about? And so I talk about this 3-step process. You, first of all, detach with amusement. You start to notice what it is you're thinking. And instead of going, oh, I should be thinking something different, I should be thinking positive, which is like that should energy. It's just notice it. Notice it with, lightness. And so I love the amusement part, because it's, oh, my brain's kind of on autopilot thinking things that I don't want it to think. So detach with amusement. Be the witness to your thoughts. The second is reduce to the ridiculous. And that is the thing that you're thinking about is one point in an infinite number of ways that the future could unfold. Why am I giving energy to this? Attention to that. My attention is like my currency. I'm feeding something. Why would I want to make a deposit into something that I don't want? I would much rather level the playing field and notice, okay, first, if this is a negative thing on this infinite number of ways that the future could unfold, what is the worst thing it could be? Pull it all the way out and really look at it, because most of the time, these things that occupy our mind are fractions of thoughts, and we just let them stew up there. Pull it all the way out and then realize how silly it is. It is ridiculous. But then level the playing field by saying, well, what's the best? Like, what's a wave a magic wand kind of way that could go? And know that it's not going to go there and it's not going to go there, but you're giving attention to something more positive is kind of pulling that arc up a little bit. And so it's the third part is to invest wisely. Think of your thoughts as currency and deposit your thoughts into something you want more of. So detach with amusement, reduce to the ridiculous, and invest wisely.
I really like that. And I love the invest wisely part really hits home with me really because you can really visualize that, right? I mean, what you want to put in there, what you want to keep in there are the things that make you feel good and do good for others and not the things that make you feel bad about yourself or kind of restrict you from being able to go out there in the world and be the good.
Yeah, yeah. I think that people, if you observe high performers, people who are things are going their way and they're positive and happy and liking their life, they may not know that they do this, but I could bet that they're not giving a lot of attention to something they don't want. They're not complaining. They don't tell themselves stories. They don't share stories with others about things that went wrong. Like there are things that go wrong, but why talk about it? But why harp on it? Why let it occupy my valuable mental real estate? So I think that the thing that we can all get better and better at is that invest wisely. What do I want to allow my thoughts to land on and hold space for?
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. And I think it will benefit a lot of people out there when they hear it.
Good.
What's the hardest thing that you've ever done?
I would say leaving a really high paying job. This is one of those circumstances where I had that little tap on the shoulder. And I was like, something happened in the company where the people who I believed in and loved, and the reason I was there, and the people who I reported to and had the biggest connection to were suddenly not there anymore. And that was AJ and Rory at a former company. And I remember thinking, the reasons they're telling me that they're not there don't make sense. They're not true for the people that I know. And so I was telling my husband, I don't think I can stay here. And he's like, wait a minute, we have two boys in college. What do you mean you can't stay at this job that's making our lifestyle the way it is? And I'm like, well, if I stay, like I'm already seriously having physical signs, like my chest is getting tighter and my gut hurts and my palms are sweaty. And I have this nervous tightness that I just don't, if I stay, you're not going to like me and I'm not going to like me. So I don't know what I'm going to do, but I have to go. And so this little tap on the shoulder turned into a spiritual 2x4 upside the head. It was like, I'm going to remove everything that makes you feel comfortable so that you will know you have to go. So when I was toying with, do I stay? Do I try and make the best of this? It was like so fiercely, no, you have to go. And when I did, then I was able to reach out and say, I don't know what you're doing, but if you're digging ditches, I'd like to dig ditches beside you because you're my people. And there was a place for me, and the rest is history. It's been amazing.
Which kind of leads me to my next question, which it is amazing. And I love the fact I didn't realize that you made the choice to leave. I didn't ever hear that part of the story before. So that is a really big decision, but it kind of really shows you that when you don't feel like you're aligned with something, and sometimes it is a big leap, but if you really feel passionate about it, you can make it work, right? You can find something that you can still enjoy and make that leap, which
And
I
I
love.
think that comes, yeah, that unshakable confidence. It's like my confidence was being eroded over there. And I loved myself enough that if I could take that leap, even if I couldn't have made something work with Rory and AJ, I believed in myself enough to know that I will land somewhere good because I can't stay there. That feels so bad and so out of alignment. I can't stay. So I think if anybody takes anything away from this, it's that authentic relationship you have with yourself is what's going to be that North Star for you with all the decisions that you make.
Yeah, absolutely. So, alchemy of joy. I want to ask you about this. So, how can you have immovable peace even when things aren't going your way? Because I don't know, at least once a day things aren't going my way. So, how do you feel that peace no matter what?
Well, to me, peace is our natural state. Joy is our natural state. And we dampen that or pile things on top of it so that we can almost not feel it, like that light is almost put out when we get made aware of something that isn't going our way. And it happens to everybody. But when you're able to say, I don't know what this means. So there's this idea that every situation I'm coming to from my Kristenness. Like I bring her everywhere I go. And that can't be true perception. It's a filter. It's a filter that is unique to me because of everything I've lived. And if I can know that something is pushing my buttons, I want to know why do I have a pushable button? I mean, two people can experience the exact same thing, and one person really reacts horribly, and one person's like water off a duck's back. Well, if something triggers you, you can frame it so that you can say, where's the gift in that? I am now being made aware that I have a pushable button. I'd like to say,